Chosen one, during the past few days, you made a very small choice that perhaps no one around you noticed. Yet that very choice is quietly changing the way you will enter the next part of your life. Perhaps it lasted only a few seconds as you restrained an angry word, decided not to return to a place that once wounded you, or offered a simple prayer when you no longer had enough strength to say anything longer. Perhaps you finally set down something you had carried for too long. Resentment, an unhealthy hope, a relationship whose season had ended, or the need to be recognized by a particular person. Outwardly, there was no great sound, no one applauded, and no one knew how fiercely you had to struggle in order to make that choice. But I saw it. I saw your hands tremble, saw fear trying to pull you back toward an old habit, and saw you choose a better step, even though you did not yet know where it would lead. Archangel Michael, the faithful messenger, protector, and executor of my will, is an image reminding you that courage sometimes lasts only a few seconds, yet can change the direction of many years. Michael does not speak in my place, nor does he decide your future for you. I am the one reminding you that what causes you to mature is not a grand declaration before a crowd, but the quiet choices you make when no one is watching. It is the moment when you could retaliate but choose calmness, could continue pleading but choose to preserve your dignity, or could conceal a mistake but choose responsibility. Such moments do not immediately change every circumstance, but they change the person standing within the circumstance. When you change from within, the things that once controlled you so easily gradually lose their power. I do not want you to believe that one good choice will instantly open every door, end every difficulty, or cause a particular day to transform your entire life into what you desire. Lasting renewal rarely arrives like a bolt of lightning. It is more like dawn. The light comes very gently, little by little, so gradually that someone staring only at the darkness may fail to notice the sky beginning to change color. The choice you recently made may be the first ray of such a morning. It has not solved everything, but it proves that you are no longer completely controlled by the past. You have begun to reclaim your right to choose, your right to say no, your right to rest, your right to make changes, and your right to move toward a life more aligned with the goodness I have placed within you. Some moments pass without being recorded by anyone, yet their value does not depend upon being witnessed. A mother who quietly restrains her irritation and speaks gently to her child is changing the atmosphere of an entire family. A man who decides to be honest about financial difficulty instead of continuing to hide, it opens a path for his circumstances to be brought into order. Someone who repeatedly returned to a harmful relationship and finally chooses distance is protecting their future. A person who recognizes that they were wrong and offers an apology is ending a cycle of pride. These things may appear small, but a house is built one brick at a time, and a new life is also constructed through ordinary choices, such as these. You once believed that recognition came only through achievement, position, money, or praise. You watched others being noticed and wondered when your turn would come. Yet, I do not measure you by speed, nor do I look only at what the world can easily recognize. I look at how you behave when circumstances are no longer favorable, how you face disappointment, and how you use your freedom. I see the times you continue to live kindly while your heart is hurting. I see you keep your word when no one is checking. I see you trying not to transfer your sadness onto innocent people. This does not make you superior to anyone else, but it reveals that maturity is taking root within you. That maturity is more precious than a moment of applause, because it can sustain you when the applause falls silent. The door before you is not necessarily a secret opportunity, engraved with your name and waiting for a certain hour to open. Understand it as a symbol of your ability to live differently. That door has been formed from lessons you once believed brought only pain. Being overlooked taught you not to place your entire worth in another person's hands. Failed plans taught you how to prepare, seek advice, and adjust. Relationships that exhausted you taught you that love requires boundaries. Lonely months taught you that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. These things did not become good merely because you survived them. Wrong remains wrong, and pain still deserves acknowledgement. But you can use what you learned, so that you do not continue walking into the future with the same lack of discernment. Perhaps you are wondering who you will become after the small choice you just made. You will not awaken as an entirely different person. Free from every fear and weakness, you will still be yourself, with parts that need healing and responsibilities that need attention. Yet, from now on, you can become someone who knows how to pause before reacting. Someone who no longer rushes to explain themselves to people unwilling to listen. Someone who understands that forgiveness does not require returning. Someone who can care without carrying another person's entire life. Someone who has the courage to face a mistake without despising themselves. This transformation is not completed in one day. It is strengthened each time you choose what is good when the old pattern returns. Imagine an ordinary weekday morning. Everything outside looks completely normal. Light enters through the window as it has on countless other days. Familiar sounds fill the house. You prepare a drink, look at your schedule, and step into the responsibilities already waiting for you. No music begins to announce that a new chapter has started. No one standing outside tells you that today is special. Yet beneath this ordinary scene, a very gentle change has taken place. You no longer enter the day with the same perspective. You recognize that you do not have to solve everything at once. You understand that another person's words do not possess the authority to destroy your entire day. You know that today you need only take the right step directly before you, rather than forcing yourself to see the whole road. You may still feel an urge you cannot clearly name, as though something within you wants to move forward. Do not turn that feeling into pressure to accomplish something dramatic immediately. Genuine readiness does not always have a clear destination. Sometimes it is simply the state in which you no longer want to postpone what you already know you need to do. You are ready to bring order to your life, ready to ask for help, ready to continue learning, and ready to speak the truth calmly. Perhaps no opportunity has yet appeared, but you have begun preparing, so that when one comes, you will no longer respond from fear. That preparation is not wasted, even if the future differs from what you imagined, because it makes you steadier in every circumstance. Look at what helped you arrive at this recent choice. Perhaps you became too exhausted to continue repeating the same cycle. Perhaps a piece of advice remained in your mind long enough for you finally to understand it. Perhaps you saw the consequences of always trying to please others and realized that if you did not change, you would continue losing your peace. Do not feel ashamed, because sometimes you change only after enduring too much. Human beings often need time before they can clearly see what they once defended. What matters is that after you have seen the truth, you do not continue pretending that you do not know. Truth may hurt for a while, but it also gives you an opportunity to choose again. I know you have prayed and felt that your words dissolved into silence. You waited for clear confirmation, but received only ordinary days. Yet prayer is not always answered through an immediate change in circumstances. Sometimes the answer begins through the courage that enables you to do what you could not do before. You asked for peace, and then realized you needed to stop returning to a pointless argument. You asked to be respected, and then learned not to continue accepting disrespect. You asked for a new door, and then understood that you first needed to release the handle of the old door you were still trying to keep closed behind you. Not everything you pray for will happen exactly as you desire, but sincere prayer can help you see yourself and reality more clearly. Perhaps your choice was to release something whose season ended long ago. You once believed that letting go meant admitting failure. You feared that all the years you had invested would become meaningless. So you continued holding on, even when the situation brought only exhaustion. Yet sometimes letting go is not giving up. It is refusing to give more time to something that has repeatedly demonstrated it cannot become a place of peace. You may appreciate the lesson without remaining there. You may acknowledge that you once loved, hoped, and made a sincere effort, and still choose to close the chapter. An ending does not deny every good thing that once existed. It simply says that you now understand you need to live differently. If what you released was a relationship, let it go without wishing for the other person to suffer in order to prove that you mattered. Allow them to take responsibility for their choices while you take responsibility for healing and moving forward. Forgiveness does not mean erasing your memories or restoring the same access they once had. You may release anger while still maintaining distance. You may hope that they mature without continuing to become the place where they unload their unhealed pain. A boundary is not a sentence of condemnation. It is your way of saying that love requires respect, honesty, and responsibility from both people. If your choice was to stop a habit, do not treat one victory as the end of the journey. The old pattern may return when you are tired, lonely, or under pressure. Prepare for those moments. Recognize what usually triggers you. Create a simple plan. Find someone trustworthy who can walk beside you. If you slip, do not use one mistake to conclude that you cannot change. Look at what happened, make an adjustment, and continue. Freedom is not only the moment when you say, enough. It is the series of choices that follow and give that decision a firm place within your life. You also need to forgive yourself for not making this choice sooner. You look back and wonder why you lost so much time, why you ignored obvious signs, or why you gave someone too many opportunities, yet your former self did not possess the understanding you have today. Perhaps you were afraid, dependent, lacking resources, or still holding hope. Do not use the light you possess now to humiliate the person you once were. Give thanks that they brought you this far with all the strength available to them. Then use your new understanding so that you no longer betray yourself. I do not want you to live as though the door opens only because I have finally been moved by the length of your suffering. I do not need you to endure additional pain to prove your faithfulness. There are times when you must persevere, but there are also moments when wisdom tells you to find another road. Do not make suffering the only measure of faith. What I treasure is honesty. that helps you recognize when to remain, when to change, and when to seek support. You are not loved more because you carry more than others. You are loved even when you need to rest. Admit that you cannot continue alone, or ask someone to walk with you. The new door you are approaching may appear very ordinary. It may be a healthy conversation, a more suitable job, a schedule containing room for rest, or a relationship in which you no longer have to wonder whether you are loved. Do not underestimate what is ordinary. You may have become so accustomed to intense emotions that stability feels as though nothing special is happening. Yet a good life does not need to be filled with constant dramatic highs. Peace, consistency, promises kept, and people who respect boundaries are profound gifts. Learn to recognize them so that you do not return to chaos merely because chaos feels familiar. My beloved child, what has exhausted you most is not only the difficulties you have endured, but also the feeling that you are being prepared for something you cannot yet see, while the present continues demanding that you persevere. In one hand, you have carried faith that your life has meaning. In the other, you have held months and years of waiting without knowing when they would end. The tension between those two realities has often left you unable to explain what you feel. Some experiences are too deep for words to contain completely. Archangel Michael, the faithful messenger, protector, and executor of my will, is an image reminding you that courage does not appear only in great battles, but also in the ability to continue living uprightly through a long season without an answer. Yet I am the one speaking to you. I have seen both what you were able to say and what you could only carry in silence. You know what it feels like to pray with complete sincerity and awaken the next morning to find that your circumstances have not changed. You know what it means to try to do what is right while the road ahead remains unclear, to pour your strength into work, family, and those you love without receiving corresponding recognition. Sometimes you do not need praise, but you still wish that at least one person would recognize how much strength it has taken to keep everything from collapsing. You enter a room filled with people, continue speaking and smiling, yet inwardly experience a loneliness difficult to name. It is not because no one is beside you, but because you see some things differently, feel more deeply what others easily overlook, and carry questions that most people do not want to stop long enough to face. You have watched others remain satisfied with things that leave you feeling empty. You see them pass through life through habit, convenience, and goals concerned only with appearances. You once tried to persuade yourself that you should be satisfied in the same way, so that you would feel less tired and no longer have to wait for something whose shape remained unclear. Yet, every time you tried to diminish your longing, sadness rose within you. This was not because you believed yourself superior to them. Every person has a different road and a different time. The sadness came because you knew you would betray something truthful within you if you lived entirely for comfort. You want a life containing love, honesty, contribution, and depth. You do not merely want to exist. You want the years entrusted to you to become a source of benefit to others. I understand this restlessness, yet do not use it to judge those who live differently, and do not call every dissatisfaction a sacred calling. Sometimes you are restless because you are overwhelmed, because your present environment no longer suits you, or because a practical need has not been cared for. Maturity requires both listening within and honestly examining your circumstances. Ask yourself, Does what I desire cause me to become more responsible? Does it lead toward humility, kindness, and practical preparation? Or does it merely cause me to dream of a glorious future so that I can avoid ordinary work today? Genuine purpose does not make you despise small tasks. It helps you perform small tasks with a greater heart. The years during which you felt held back are not necessarily proof that I was absent. Yet, I also do not want you to believe that every delay was intentionally created by me in order to shape you. Some doors closed because of the decisions of others, changing circumstances, or insufficient preparation on your part. Some relationships ended through immaturity, and some opportunities were lost through factors no one could control. I do not call every pain good. I do not require you to feel grateful for being treated unjustly. Yet I can walk with you so that what happened does not become the place where your future is buried. What once made you cry may teach you about boundaries. What disappointed you may help you distinguish promises from consistency. What caused you to lose direction may compel you to find a foundation deeper than recognition. This is formation. Suffering itself does not make you noble. The way you respond to suffering determines what will be built within you. Two people may pass through the same trial, yet one becomes bitter while the other becomes wiser. I do not force you to become something by harming you. I invite you to choose between passing pain onward and bringing it to an end, between using the past to justify every reaction and accepting responsibility for how you live today. Each time you refuse to make an innocent person endure what you once endured, you are being formed. Each time you admit fault without despising yourself, forgive while maintaining boundaries, or rest without calling yourself a failure, you become steadier. You may think of a person who once left the halls of power and lived for many years in an isolated land, performing work no one praised. To outside observers, this appeared to be a decline. Someone who once held a position now living quietly and caring for very ordinary things. Yet in that place without applause, he learned patience, observation, responsibility, and how no longer to depend upon his former status to know who he was. Those years were not a performance intended to prove that he was special. They stripped away an identity built upon borrowed position so that a more humble strength could be formed. When greater responsibility appeared, what enabled him to stand was not only eloquence or an impressive past, but the character developed in an unseen life. You have also experienced such isolated lands. There were seasons when your abilities seemed unused, your voice unheard, and your faithfulness unproductive. You looked back upon what you had once accomplished and wondered whether you were moving backward. Yet, sometimes losing the support of reputation, role, or attention helps you discover who you are without those things. If the loss of praise causes you to lose the desire to do what is right, perhaps you were too dependent upon approval. If the ending of a position causes you to feel that all your worth has disappeared, perhaps your identity became too tightly bound to a title. Silence is not always humiliation. Sometimes it reveals what you have been using as a substitute for peace. Nevertheless, do not romanticize the wilderness. A dry land is not a place where you must remain forever in order to prove your faithfulness. There are times when you need to persevere, but there are also times when you need to seek water, support, and another path. If your work is causing serious harm, a relationship lacks safety, or your health is deteriorating, do not simply call it preparation and endure indefinitely. Seek advice make a plan, and act wisely. I do not need you to become exhausted. In order to prove that you have been called, healthy formation helps you become more alive, truthful, and capable of loving. Not someone who increasingly loses their voice and dignity. You once hoped there would be a particular morning. When all waiting ended, your calling became clear, and a door opened before you. Such a day may arrive through a phone call, an invitation, a decision, or sudden clarity. Yet no Wednesday, Thursday, or any other day on a calendar carries the power to change your destiny by itself. I do not bind my love and guidance to a date in order to pressure you. A new chapter begins when the old one no longer determines the way you choose. It may begin on the morning, when you stop chasing someone who uses silence as control. The day you honestly ask for help, or the moment you decide to resume work you have postponed. True turning points often look very ordinary from the outside. The threshold before you is not necessarily an entrance into a position that causes the entire world to know your name. It may be the movement from living reactively to living through deliberate choice. Previously, another person's anger caused you to panic. Now you know how to give them space without condemning yourself. Before, being misunderstood caused you to explain yourself until you were exhausted. Now you know how to speak clearly once, and allow your way of life to continue demonstrating the truth. Previously, failure made you believe you were useless. Now you know how to reflect, learn, and adjust. Such a change is not glamorous, but it affects every relationship, task, and opportunity that follows. When fear no longer rules you, you will recognize doors you once overlooked because you were too busy standing before one that had already closed. I know you want assurance that the length of your preparation will correspond to the greatness of the reward. Yet, life is not an equation in which a certain number of years of suffering automatically becomes great success. I do not want you to live as someone who believes the world owes them, because they have paid a price. Long years can produce depth, but only when you use them to learn and mature. If you spend the entire time nourishing resentment, comparison, and the hope that others will regret what they did, waiting will not automatically transform into wisdom. But if you care for your life, correct your patterns, learn new abilities, and guard your heart from bitterness, even an extremely difficult season may produce something good. Look at what is being formed, instead of asking only when something external will arrive. Are you becoming more faithful to your word? Are you calmer when provoked? Are you using resources more wisely? Can you receive correction without collapsing or immediately becoming defensive? Have you learned how to rest, apologize, and say no at the right time? These are signs that you are becoming ready for greater responsibility. An opening door requires more than talent. It requires character strong enough to prevent you from losing yourself after you pass through it. If opportunity arrives before you learn how to manage attention, you may be pulled in every direction. If influence comes before you heal your need for recognition, you may become a slave to applause. If money comes before you learn restraint, it may enlarge the disorder already present. If new love arrives while you still believe you must sacrifice every boundary in order to be kept, you may repeat the old story with a different face. Preparation is not me trying to keep something good away from you. It is the process through which you learn to receive without becoming controlled by what you receive. Remember that formation also includes letting go. You cannot enter the next part of life lightly while carrying every old judgment resentment, and expectation. Forgive those who did not understand your season, but do not use forgiveness to deny what they did. You can establish boundaries, leave an unsafe place, and still refrain from wishing them harm. Forgive yourself for the years in which you wandered, for holding on too long, or for believing that unlimited endurance was faithfulness. You cannot return and choose differently, but you can use today's understanding to avoid repeating the same pattern. You also need to release the belief that everyone living a simple or comfortable life lacks purpose. Some people are called to live very ordinary lives, care for their families, perform common work, and bring peace within a small circle. This is not less noble. You do not need a mission that astonishes many people in order to prove that your waiting was not wasted. Sometimes, the greatest thing you will do is end a harmful family pattern, raise children with gentleness, or become a trustworthy person within an unstable environment. The significance of a life is not measured only by the number of people who know your name, but by the quality of love you bring into the place where you have been planted. When you feel different, remain humble. You may feel deeply and still misunderstand. You may carry a beautiful desire while needing to adjust the way you pursue it. Therefore, seek people mature enough to correct you, not only those who continually agree. Allow purpose to be tested by its fruit. Does it make you kinder, more responsible, and more truthful? If a calling causes you to despise others, neglect your duties, or believe you are exempt from every limitation, you need to stop and examine it. What comes from me does not nourish self-exaltation. It causes you to serve with a wider heart. Now look upon your present threshold with peace. You do not need to rush across it in order to prove that you are ready. Examine what should be carried forward and what needs to be set down. Complete unfinished responsibilities. Care for your health. Bring order to your time and resources. Offer the apology that needs to be spoken. Learn what you still lack. These actions may not make you feel as though you are entering a historic moment, but they transform hope into genuine preparation. When an opportunity comes, you will possess more than emotion. You will have a foundation. If the door has not yet opened, do not stand before it so long that you forget to live. The present day needs your presence. Someone needs a kind word. Work needs to be completed. Your body needs rest, and your home requires care. The future is not built through continually staring toward the horizon. It is formed by the way you use an ordinary day. I am not present only at great doors. I am present in the glass of water you drink, the conversation in which you choose your words carefully, and the decision you make while no one is watching. My beloved child, the wilderness is not your identity, but it can become the place where you learn to stop depending upon fragile things. The threshold is not a reward for suffering long enough, but an invitation to use the wisdom you have gained and live differently. The new morning is not locked to a particular day on a calendar. It begins whenever you choose truth instead of illusion, responsibility instead of delay, forgiveness instead of bitterness, and courage instead of fear. Rise with the calm strength symbolized by Michael, but do not rise in order to fight everyone. Rise to end the war against yourself. You no longer need to prove your purpose through exhaustion. Ask permission to live truthfully, or wait until those who doubted you feel regret before you can move forward. Release them from your shoulders. Give thanks for those who remained, for the lessons that made you wiser, and for the quietness that helped you recognize what truly matters. I am with you in the season of waiting, and in the transition, in what you understand and in what remains unclear. When you are tired, rest. When you do not know, ask. When you are wrong, correct it. When a door closes, examine the situation without condemning yourself. When a door opens, enter with humility. You do not need to become another person within a single morning. You need only continue becoming a more truthful, compassionate, and steady version of yourself each day. This is how a season of formation reaches its most beautiful result. Not merely because circumstances finally change, but because you have become someone capable of carrying what is good, without losing peace, using it to serve, and offering light to those still walking through dry lands of their own.